More Cornstalks and Sports Talk coming at you right now here on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. As Elijah, or EJ Warner, was named the starter this week for the first time in his college career. The son of Kurt Warner, of course, UNI legend, an NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP. It's looking like he's trying to make a name for himself here for the Temple Owls. And now on to talk with us a little bit about EJ is Isabella DiAmore from the Philly Inquirer. Bella, how did EJ get this time he's earned so far? And did you or other people around the Temple program expect him to make this sort of impact this early?
Yeah. Well, first off, it was a huge shock when we saw him come in the second quarter of the game against Lafayette this past weekend. I remember sitting in the press box and we were like, wait, what is that EJ going in? And, so it was coming off of DeJuan Mathis, the original starter of the game, who started also against Duke for their season opener. We thought he was going to be the guy. And his backup was originally Quincy Patterson, according to the depth charts, who came from Virginia. So we thought, okay, like, we're not sure because EJ's a freshman coming in, so maybe we won't see any playing time of him. But you never know, obviously. So he came in, and it was super shocking in the press box. We were obviously all sitting there like, oh my God, he's coming in. But he was a sight to see. I mean, honestly, he came in and he proved that he can play obviously Division I football, and he didn't look like a freshman. And that's I know that's cliche to say, but he really didn't. He had great confidence just standing there in the pocket and knowing that there's probably all the defensive line was coming at him, and he just had this nice mobility within his feet to stay in the pocket and make accurate passes. So yeah, he came in and really proved himself during the second quarter of that game, and then played throughout the rest of those three quarters.
And so you mentioned Quincy Patterson, who was initially the backup transfer from Virginia, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then DeJuan Mathis, I read somewhere that he was a transfer from Georgia. That is crazy.
Yeah. So that's also been kind of the talk too of, Mathis was this guy, he comes from Georgia, has a really interesting story and his background and everything, and came in as a very high prospect, during his recruiting process. So he came into Temple, and initially everyone, when he did come in during that time of last year under Rod Carey, we all thought, okay, DeJuan Mathis is the guy, he's going to be the guy. And it obviously, it took a turn. With last year was an interesting situation. They had Justin Lynch come in who also had connections with Rod Carey through Northern Illinois. And then that kind of stirred the pot a little bit of, okay, DeJuan Mathis didn't feel like he belonged in a sense to the starting spot. So that he talked about transferring out of Temple, but then obviously with the head coaching changes that change that perspective of his. Probably that's what we've heard. He came in with a clean slate, wanted to help turn the program around. And yeah, so that was kind of the shock. But DeJuan Mathis, I think he has great he can really throw long down the field, but I think he has certain decision making skills that shows the kind of inconsistency of him. The last two games he's fumbled the ball, so it's twice, and in that game in particular against Lafayette he fumbled twice. So that was kind of the decision that went for Drayton, that went into that of saying, like, you know what, after two fumbles I gotta do something. You can't. He didn't want to lose this game against Lafayette. That was really the ultimate decision that went into bringing in EJ, and EJ won the game for them.
I mean, what it looked like in only watching the highlights, I wasn't able to watch the whole game, but what it looked like with EJ was the offense just got a shot of adrenaline in its arm. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think at first, once he started to get a little bit more comfortable making, those 10-yard passes, and then once they got into the end zone, he really, I think during that drive of when he came in, he launched it into the end zone into a particular spot. It wasn't like to a direct person. And then Ian Stewart, who is a transfer from Michigan State, he came in just going directly to that spot and caught the pass, and it was beautiful. It was honestly, like, I don't know if it was the play calling, if he decided to do that himself, but it was really, you could tell the energy just 100% changed after he made that touchdown he threw that touchdown to Ian Stewart. It was really incredible.
Again, we're talking with Bella DiAmore from the Philly Inquirer, a little bit about Kurt Warner's son, EJ Warner, here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk this Saturday morning on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com. Now, with those plays that he made, I mean, what my question regarding this is, what do his teammates think of him? I mean, I can't imagine he has been able to build that much rapport, not only as a freshman, but having only played 3 quarters with these guys.
Yeah, I mean, we got some of the players, Isaac Moore in particular, after he was on the offensive line after the game, and he kind of said how EJ led the huddle. He came in and was like leading that room and was kind of like talking through things. And he said it himself too. He didn't look like a freshman. He spoke with confidence. He was trying to get the energy going. So definitely from someone who is in there, who's in a single digit on the team, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with the single digit concept, but it's awarded to the most toughest guys and the leaders of the team. So Isaac Moore is one of the leaders on this group. And for him to say that, that's huge, of saying a freshman, a true freshman came in, because now I'll, have eligibility and, this guy's a freshman, but he's not actually a freshman. But, EJ's a true freshman coming in. And that's, I think, incredible that Isaac Moore was able to say that about him.
Now, I imagine you've interacted with him a little bit. Can you see some of those qualities, those leadership qualities, intangibles that a freshman might not necessarily have developed this early?
Yeah, honestly, we haven't had the chance to speak with EJ, just like he wasn't available during those during the media availabilities. He wasn't made available to us, but just kind of seeing from a distance of how he goes about, on the sidelines with his teammates. He goes about it in as a pro, almost, like just with the way he goes about the game. And I think that's huge for a freshman. And maybe it comes from from stories that we've heard and done. His dad Kurt was a huge part of his developing process, so I think to have that voice, to have that kind of mentality already, maybe comes from his dad of instilling that, and his brother at a young age.
Now, you mentioned the teammates, you mentioned himself having that confidence. Does Stan Drayton have that confidence in him? I think that's the number one question, obviously, when you're looking at future playing time for EJ. And do you think that Stan Drayton's head coach for Temple, by the way, for those of you Iowa fans who don't know that, but for EJ to continue to be the guy going forward. It doesn't seem that Stan Drayton has that confidence quite yet, which is understandable given that how little he's played and the fact that he's a freshman. How much confidence does Stan Drayton have in him at this point? And what do you think EJ needs to do to solidify having that job going forward?
Yeah, I mean, from talking to Stan Drayton on Monday, because that's when every Monday we'll always get a press, availability with Drayton, and we kind of just go through the game. And he talks about how, he always rewatches the film and he goes through it, and he liked what he saw from EJ. He was really impressed. He said the words pleasantly surprised of, one, just the way that he was able to handle himself under that pressure, the way he was able to take getting tackled by these defensive linemen and still get back up and make another play. And so with that being said, he's taking first team reps with, in practice this week. And Drayton has said that all the quarterbacks take first team reps just to get a rotation going within them, so they can kind of tell, evaluate where the talent is at. But the words he used was, he's taking more first team reps. So it's I think him solidifying that spot, he's doing all the right stuff that he's supposed to be doing, by holding himself a certain way, by his performance on the field, and obviously showing that. And obviously from what we saw in the depth charts, he was the number one guy from what we saw. And then DeJuan Mathis was considered the backup. So it wouldn't surprise me if, EJ was the starter against Rutgers. And I think Rutgers will be a huge evaluation for him of what he can do, because this is a Big Ten team. This is going to be the only Big Ten team that Temple plays this season. So I think, it's going to be a big evaluator of where he's at. But also just to note, Drayton has said his ceiling is so high. So the fact that, he's doing all this stuff now, wait until he gets to his junior year of this kind of, the player he can be.
So you mentioned that game against Rutgers. That's going to be where we see what EJ is and what he's capable of. Scarlet Knights are pretty heavy favorites. what will EJ need to do in this game, assuming everything goes the way we expect it to keep the starting job? And I mean, who knows? Maybe even lead them to a win over the Scarlet Knights.
Yeah. So I mean, well, just watching what Rutgers has done so far, their defense is super strong. I mean, they've caused 5 turnovers so far in the last 2 games that they've played. So that's going to be something huge for the offense. And even so, just keeping the ball, I mean, with this fumbles and the situations that they've gotten themselves into, they cannot make those simple mistakes, because that's what costs them turnover, of possession time, and that's going to be so crucial for them, is possession of that ball. So I definitely think they're going to have to be aware of that. Maybe their run game is going to be like they're going to have to utilize the run game more so. And and I think EJ's also capable of doing that. I think he's capable of running, but I also think he's a good decision maker. So when he is in the pocket, he'll find those, from what it seemed, from just watching him within those 3 quarters. And we haven't seen a lot of him, like we said, and this is just going to be a stronger defense. I think he's a decision maker in a sense that he can, if plays aren't going a certain way or something isn't going the way that they thought it was, he can make those decisions to get them to where they need, get them a first down, get them what they need to get to.
If you're unfamiliar with Rutgers, listeners, they're actually not awful anymore. So they're 2-0 so far. And I mean, I think they're a team to keep your eyes on. They are in the Big Ten, so it is a little bit more difficult. But before we get to my final question here with Bella, we are talking with Bella DiAmore here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk. She covers Temple's. Oh my gosh, I almost said Rutgers, and then I said Temple football for the Philly Inquirer. We're talking a little bit about Kurt Warner's son, EJ Warner, being named the starting quarterback. Of course, he is a true freshman. Do you think they can pull off a victory against a Big Ten team like Rutgers?
Um,
That sounds like a no.
I think it will be better than last year. Last year, I'm gonna say I think I can't. It's 61-3 for my. I believe it's 61-3, which was pretty terrible. It was their first, but it was their season opener, and Drain has said this is a clean slate. They're not looking back. They're not evaluating themselves from the kind of team that they were last year. Because first off, he wasn't even here. It was under Rod Carey. So I think they'll be better than they were. It won't be the score that was last year. Kind of just looking at how I think they're improving from what they were played against Duke, which was a blowout. They didn't score a single point. But maybe with EJ Warner in, and with guys, with the defense kind of finding because Temple's defense is definitely their stronger suit. They'll find a little bit more consistency there. And I mean, maybe I honestly think Rutgers is going to be the one to get this win, in my opinion. Obviously, to see Temple win, that's, you want to see the team you cover win, because that's great. But in just looking at stats, numbers, and everything, I think Rutgers will be the one to get the victory. But I think Temple will do more than what they're anticipated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I gotcha. She is Bella DiAmore. She is a writer, associate sports editor, to be exact, for the Philly Inquirer, covering Temple football. You can follow her on Twitter at Bella DiAmore. It's DIAMORE. Bella, thanks so much for hopping on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.